And I feel this pressure to like simultaneously like look at the people that I'm talking to, but then like tune in. So this just gives me like a full permission to like put my eyes where I need to put my eyes, to, like tune in the weird ways that I like to tune in, without having to be visual. Plus, I like the little cocoon that the camera's off and this kind of a space creates, without the visual distraction. It seems to work really well. Just in terms of like how we're able to be with our own in our own process and with our own energy. So there were so many people that commented that they wanted this 10:30 a.m. time. And now I don't see them here. So hopefully they join a little bit later. We're recording anyways, which is fine. I'm going to share a little bit about what this process is going to be like, just to ease us into this journey. And then today we are going to we're going to go into the Akashic field, into the Akashic records, and we will kind of start to tune into the woman that you are being called to be next. So if you're familiar with my work, or if you're working with me privately, we've probably done work similar to this, which is fine. This is just an opportunity to clarify even more. I'll talk about why that's important. And then we are going to work with the Akashic records. And this is different than what I've ever taught before. The one thing that's the same as to how I always guide transformational journeys is this is a soul level guided transformational journey. That's the same. And so I think that's kind of one fun aspect of the containers that I hold, is that I am teaching and we are doing really deep work, but it is a journey, right? There's energy at play once we set the container and we get really intentional with what it is that we're opening up to. It's a journey. There's energetics at play. It's a very intuitive, soul guided experience. And so even outside the scope of our work together, there is energetics at play. There's pieces that are moving and shifting and realigning. And I mean, that's the case when we, drop into a lot of different containers. But what I like is that we will kind of land this in 5 weeks. We'll ground it and we'll really look at, where we've come from in terms of this very first call, and then what it is that we've dropped into in 5 weeks, and what it is that we're embodying more fully to really close out this transformational journey. So let's see here. Give me 1 sec. I just want to see. Okay, thanks. 10:30 a.m. for me too. Yeah, we are live. Oh, I see. Yeah. So strange because everyone was so excited about being live. But anyways, okay. Let's just drop in very briefly. I want these calls to be about 75 minutes long because that gives a little bit of room. Longer than an hour, not quite 90 minutes. But if we do go over 75 minutes, then there's still that little bit of wiggle room. Let's go ahead though. And just give me 1 sec. I'm missing my notes, which usually I write out, but I put them on my computer. Give me 1 sec. Okay. So let's just go ahead and take a moment to just kind of drop in. We'll kind of go deeper and deeper with this. Oop, got my bell. We'll go deeper and deeper with this as we move into more of the Akashic record work. But just to kind of anchor us on this Monday morning, let's go ahead and close our eyes, or I'm making that invitation. If that feels good to you, you can do that as well. And closing our eyes, dropping our chin, and I'm actually seeing us surrounded by a beautiful, soft pink orb of light. a beautiful, soft pink orb of light. And just allowing yourself to come into the space of your breath and into the space of your body, and just allowing yourself to feel held in that beautiful, soft pink orb of light. It's got like a lot of mother energy, and it almost feels like kind of like jelly. It's interesting, like an egg. It's even shaped like an egg. So just allowing yourself to begin to receive that love and that protection and that grace. And outside of that beautiful pink orb of light is um is roses. There's a ring of roses all the way around this beautiful pink orb of light. And this is so beautiful for a lot of different reasons, because as much as we're talking about the family matrix of origin, and as much as we're talking about, your next like level, the embodiment of who you're becoming, it's interesting because this really is about the awakening of more of our divine feminine essence, power, and prosperity in the world. And there's already these beautiful pieces of the divine feminine coming in. And I'm going to talk about why that is showing up. And so if you know me, then I've been doing this work for a long time. Some of you are new to this experience with me. So I'm going to just share just a tiny bit about me. So I've been working on behalf of the divine feminine for probably the last 11 or 12 years. But really, it's always kind of, if I go back over the scope of my journey, it's been present since probably the time that I was like 14. I was always really drawn to the feminine path. There's maybe some confusion around that through my teens and into my 20s. But this is work that I've been doing for a long time, and it's work that I hold space for with women leaders who are ready to awaken to more, right? Whatever that looks like in terms of their evolution into more of their divine feminine vision, more of their embodied feminine expression and power. And so over the years, I started to notice like how relationship work was such a predominant piece. And that really was because I'm not even looking at my notes, and I kind of like to look at my notes because there's some channel pieces there, but I'm going to talk a little bit. But there's a reason for that, because the divine feminine is the essence, the energy of Shakti, or the feminine, that's been suppressed on the planet for like a good, as far as I can tell, about 5,000 years. And so when more of our divine feminine essence starts to awaken, right, she will push up against the patriarchal consciousness. And that exists even in our own consciousness, right? Because that suppression has existed so long on the planet, and the dominant suppressing force was patriarchal consciousness. And it's something that collectively, that engagement with patriarchal consciousness has existed for so long. We all have entanglement in patriarchal consciousness. So that's the major suppressing force. So when the divine feminine, the healing energy and the healing power of the divine feminine awakens to that next level embodiment and expression for a woman, and this is kind of like, this is why I feel it's an evolutionary path. It doesn't stop. We're just looking at like where we're being called into the next level of that expression and that embodiment, and what that looks like for us in terms of our own leadership. But when we step into it, when we claim it, when it starts to awaken within us, in order for it to ground into the physical, in that next level expression and embodiment, it needs to, and it will, that divine feminine expression, especially, working on behalf of, it could be for any being, because I have worked with men as well. It could any being. This is the same. It's these internal templates exist for all of us. But when that expression rises up and wants to anchor more fully into the physical, it'll push up against the edges of patriarchal consciousness that exist in our primary relationships. And I see this over and over again. So as a woman's traveling a path into the next level of her expression, it's like very often it's like, oh, we're working on like her relationship to herself, then we're working on her relationship to her spouse, then it's like, you know, something with a parent will come up, then a sibling, then her child, right? So there's like all these different relationships that she's pushing up against, and one is part of like where she's growing and expanding and evolving, and then the pushes on the edge of the patriarchal consciousness, which is the suppressor. And there's, you know, separation, scarcity, lack, limitation, illusion. That's kind of like where all of that sits. And so we'll feel it in terms of um it just can be push pull, like power dynamics. It can just feel like a general kind of like every time I try to speak this or do this, I just feel like I can't. It'll play out in a lot of different ways. And um, I just lost my train of thought because there's some other piece that wants to come through around this, and I'm already channeling these teachings, which feel so good. But it'll definitely start to play out, and she'll push up against that patriarchal consciousness piece that exists within the different relationship dynamics. And that piece, this piece actually, where do I want to go with this? I just want to make sure that it's clear, because I might weave this piece in a little bit, but not right now. But really what we're doing and what we want to do is we want to untangle and clear in the scope of our relationships where the threads of the patriarchal consciousness is suppressing the next expression of our divine feminine essence. And that's exactly what we're going to do as we move through this 5-week journey. We're going to be looking at a variety of different relationships. So we're going to be looking at, we're going to be pulling up, and I'm going to see how this wants to come through as I move into the Akashic records. But ideally what we're going to be doing is working with like your Akashic record and the Akashic record of these primary relationships. There's just one other piece that keeps wanting to, it's getting my attention, but it's not quite formulated. Just give me one moment to just tune into what that piece is. Yeah, okay, I can see it. Yeah, it has to do with the inner child. Okay, so I'm going to talk about that piece, but I'm going to go back to my notes here, and I'm going to read a little bit because there's probably some pieces in there too that'll continue to tie this all together. Actually, what I want to do is come back to the meditation. So let's go ahead and come back to the pink orb. Now I see where I started to flow from, to the pink orb with the roses all around us. And we're just allowing ourselves to come home to the beauty of our bodies, to the beauty of our breath. And there's this real like attention and invitation to just sink into the loving presence of the divine feminine. And I get this sense and this message of safety, you know, and safety is something, you know, that begins at the root, that we feel in our bodies. And it's being highlighted. And there's this sense of safety. And it's like this reminder that it is like safe to choose ourselves, safe to choose this path, safe to choose the evolutionary journey. And as I'm saying this, there's a little bit of sadness, which is so normal. So normal when we are saying yes to whatever it is that we're being called into next. So going ahead and closing your eyes, if that feels good to you, coming back to the breath, and we're just going to back to our bodies, and we're going to let our bodies start to drop and drop and drop just a little bit more. until we're feeling fully held by the beauty, strength, and abundance of Mother Earth. And just any focus that you have invested in last week, throughout today, throughout the next 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to go ahead and do our best, and we're going to pull it right to the present moment. And with that, taking a breath in through the nose and down into the energetic womb space. And up and out through the mouth. And we're going to do that breath 2 more times, bringing it to the count of 3. And as we're doing that, I'm feeling around us, it's another circle of protection. This is so interesting. And I can't quite make out who the women are. And it almost felt like a very angelic circle of women holding hands around us. And then I thought, is it the goddesses? And then what I actually felt was like our ancestral lineage. I mean, that is so beautiful. It's so beautiful because this is, part of the work that we're doing is healing our ancestral lineage. But I'm just feeling like all this grace and all this love and all this protection and all this support. So it's just feels like another layer of protection. And we're just allowing ourselves, wherever you're feeling in your body, you're kind of still holding on. It's like that invitation to where can you let go? Where can you just allow yourself to drop in, to let go, to lean back into that inner back body, right? This is such sacred and deep work. And the ancestors are showing up because they know that. And again, it takes courage to travel to the depths of our soul, right? To examine different relationship dynamics and to be present with what doesn't serve us. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just read a little bit through my notes because it's going to set the stage for the entire 5 weeks. We still have lots of time. So what you will want to do is have a journal, which I mentioned in the Facebook group. And if you don't have a journal, fine, sheets of paper, all good. And at minimum, just show up and receive. Just show up and receive. It would be beautiful to start a brand new journal if that feels good to you for this journey. And I'm going to guide you. I'm going to guide you in the Akashic field with the Akashic records, working with your own Akashic record. We're going to be working with 3 timelines. So the timelines that we're working with are your future self timeline, which we're going to spend a little bit of time on today. We're going to be working with the inner child, which is such an important piece. The inner child carries so much of the wounding that we're going to be unraveling because she has absorbed, right, so much of the experience of her parents and her lineage at such a young age. So that's an aspect of a template. So a picture of your inner child. And if you don't have a picture of your inner child, that's okay. It's okay. We can still just visualize her, or we can just be present with whatever our inner child is or whoever she is, because not everyone can connect with her. And then the third timeline is basically this current experience of ourselves. So it's nothing that you need to concern yourself with overly. This is just for your awareness. And now I'm going to read a little bit of what I wrote. And I think this is going to tie together really beautifully what I was starting to tap into at the beginning with the divine feminine. So new paradigm feminine leadership consists of freeing the inner child from the pain patterns of generational, ancestral, and collective trauma that has led to the wounded masculine and wounded feminine, creating separation from our true divine power and the templates of sovereignty that rest in the internal upgraded queen and king templates and the realignment to the higher holy mother and father consciousness that is always holding the inner child. Okay, so just take that and let it, receive it with wherever, it wants to land for you. I'll post this document in the Facebook group if this is something you want to refer back to, but it's like a spiral. It's like whatever lands and whatever you're receiving right now, you're going to go deeper with it over the next 5 weeks. Okay. So when this happens, there is a new realignment to oneness. As above, so below, as within, so without. We naturally shift from the pain, trauma, and separation of the old matrix, which is patriarchal consciousness, and into the new earth experience that is presently grounding on the planet. We quite literally reroute into the new paradigm. Okay, now I want to talk about the root chakra. So the root chakra, because when we're talking about family and we're talking about upgrading the current family matrix, which really stems from our family of origin, that all has to do with the root chakra. It's one of the reasons why, if you pay attention to my branding, a lot of the times I'm talking about like the rose and the root, because it's so pivotal, and it's where we hold like a lot of our trauma imprints around safety, around money, around survival. Okay, so the root chakra, and what I like to call it for women, is the rose chakra. Okay, is where a lot of that trauma imprinting is held. So I want you to think of your legs, which won't be hard to do if you have legs. So think of your legs, your left leg, your right leg. Your left leg is your feminine lineage. And even just like place your hand on your left leg, and you're like, just like, and follow it like up to the root, right? And the root and the rose chakra exists right, let's see, it exists at the base of the spine, the pubic bone, right? It's that whole area. Okay, so the meeting point, and so the right leg, and again, you can trace your hand over your right leg. The right leg is the father lineage, the masculine lineage. And that is, again, that's your paternal lineage. And that follows right up to the root, the rose chakra. Okay, so that is the meeting point of the birth of your current physical experience. Right? So it's like everything, your actual crown, provided you were born head first. And if it was a cesarean, it really doesn't matter. This is just to give an analogy. Right? But it's where we are birthed into the physical experience. So now think of the root chakra for women. Right? And again, I like to think of it as like the rose chakra, because for women, there's a lot of pain and imprints that exist there that connect to the suppression and the distortion of the divine feminine and the history of that collectively, ancestrally, generationally. So that's why, like, this is a journey. This journey is simultaneously a journey of like feminine awakening and reclamation of more of that power and expression. But as we connect to and reawaken the divine feminine essence that rises, there's this ripple effect of healing and rebalancing that happens, like through our ancestry, through our major relationships, through our family of origin and through our family matrix. I find for moms who are traveling, mamas who are traveling the sacred path, it's like you won't see it as much with your family of origin, the ripple effect. Like you will see it a bit with like your mom and your father. And for everyone, it's different. Like it can be like pretty huge for some people. But I do find that because it's in our primary experience for the most part, the family, like our current family matrix, that you will see that beautiful healing ripple effect throughout the family matrix of origin, right? And because that is it's been suppressed for so long, well, I already talked about this, but how it gets tangled up in the relationships, in our primary relationships of the family matrix of origin. And I've seen this over and over again. As we make space for more of a woman's divine feminine essence, beauty, power, prosperity, and that upgrade happens throughout her relationships and more space is created, it recalibrates the family matrix. It brings more of the divine feminine medicine throughout the family matrix, because truly patriarchal consciousness, it permeates everywhere, and it permeates, for the most part, depending on where you're at in your evolutionary journey, it permeates our family matrix, right? And it depends too on our partners and what their experience of their own evolutionary path is. Okay, so what often happens through this is that when the feminine goes to reclaim more space for her expression, she pushes up against the patriarchal consciousness still embedded in other relationships. And now to take that a layer deeper, that is often exactly what is rising up in her to be cleared and untangled as well. So there is both a reharmonization of her internal templates and her external relationships as well. And this is because as we anchor into the new earth or the new paradigm, it really is about the journey into oneness. It's about the journey into sovereignty. And that all begins with our relationship to self. And all other relationships are a mirror. So as the divine feminine rises up within us, whatever that next level of our evolution is, it will show up in our external relationships, but it is also present in our own internal dialogue with different masculine and feminine aspects, because we're doing this journey into sovereignty. So as we untangle it, we're untangling it in our own consciousness, which is so cool, and in our external relationships. So that's why I love the Akashic Record clearing work, because it's so deep. And we're going to talk about, how it's showing up in your present lifetime experience and how that's playing out in different relationships. Totally valid, totally true. But also it's a mirror to what is showing up between your own internal wounded feminine and wounded masculine inner templates, or sometimes your empowered feminine and your wounded masculine templates. So it's cool. So once we unravel that, it's like a reharmonizing happens within and externally. All right. So we're going to be traveling through 5 major relationships. We're going to start with spouse today. So, if you don't have a spouse, we'll look at what is present for you. That's fine. But we're going to start with spouse, and I'm going to talk about why we start there. We're going to go into father, mother, sibling, and child. So, if you don't have a sibling, we'll look at what relationship is present for you that week. If you don't have a child, because some of you are private clients and you're here and you don't have children, and that's totally fine too. We'll look at whatever relationship is present for you there. It's all good. Okay. So I'm going to talk just a couple of minutes. So we might run a little bit over today, and I apologize. It's just to set the stage for everything in the future. I won't have to cover a lot of this, but today we do, and I'm almost done this talking part, but I do want to talk a little bit about the Akashic Records briefly, just a very, very brief, because not everyone has worked with the Akashic Records. I think most of you have been in either master classes or worked with me privately or done different programs with me. So that's great. If I were to just kind of boil down the Akashic Records, I would say that the Akashic Records are a very, very ancient source of wisdom and healing. The Akashic Records are a recorded library that are held at the level of soul, that are held at the level of subconscious, that are held cellularly, which means they actually are held in our body. The Akashic Records existed before any of this physical experience, ancient. And they have the Akashic Records have a recorded memory of like every choice point, every experience, every thought, every emotion. So it's an energetic, I see it as like an energetic like library, and every soul has its own Akashic record. The Akashic record also contains like the divine purpose of the soul, like the original soul blueprint. So a lot of times when we're working with and I think the Akashic records are kind of like the planet's deepest healing tool, and hold that collective memory of like true unity consciousness, like, which is what we are anchoring into when we talk about the new earth, when we talk about the new paradigm. So the Akashic records naturally realign us back to a place of soul sovereignty and unity consciousness. So as we clear out a lot of these, wounded aspects, or these separation aspects, or these limitation or scarcity aspects, we're clearing out the crud that prevents more of our limitless divine expression here in our physical world, in this moment in time. So we kind of untangle, clear, and we're simultaneously making space for more of our divine expression and for the upgrade of the King and Queen templates and the realignment to the high holy mother and father consciousness. Okay. So let's go ahead and we can open up into the, by the way, if you have any questions about this, after today's call, probably won't have a lot of time for questions on the call today, but post it in the group. I'm not breaking down a lot of these teachings around like unity consciousness, new earth, new paradigm, as much as I normally would, because it's coming through as more of a transmission style teaching. So just receive the transmission, let it sink in over the 5 weeks. But if you have questions about any of this, like, reach out. I'm happy to go back and forth and just share my experience and my knowledge, and to have it meet you with where it feels like it resonates. So without further ado, let's go into the Akashic Records and open up and see what's present there. So coming back into that space of presence, coming back to your body, you may want to close your eyes. Taking a breath. I'm going to ring my bell 3 times. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to call down the temples of divine love, light, truth, abundance, wisdom, and power to descend, grow, and expand around us, calling in our guides, masters, angels, teachers, the guardians and goddesses to be present. Asking this to be a divinely protected space where only the highest frequencies of love and light shall exist, banishing all negative influences, should there be any, in this container, in this space today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We'll bring our focus again to the energetic womb space. seeing it fill up with a gold energy, and we'll bring that gold energy down with one swish and swirl down through the core of the body, down through yoni, down through all the layers of earth and crust and soil and root and rock, right down to the core of Mother Earth, attaching it around a piece of rose quartz crystal. Bringing our focus up to the energetic heart space, center of the chest, seeing a magenta rose bloom open. From there, going ahead and seeing the golden grid of the flower of life begin to expand and swirl out from the heart space located at the center of the chest, letting that pure wisdom and high frequency light, the radiant divine substance of all of creation that's interwoven into all of life, begin to permeate and infuse itself within us, out from us, and all around us into the Akashic field. Allowing this light to continue to grow, expand, and interpermeating with the physical and non-physical reality that exists before us, all around us, and within us. Allowing the radiant divine substance of all of life that flows from all things continue to flower and expand from the heart chakra. And then just seeing, sensing, feeling as the doors to the Akasha and all the wisdom and love of the Akasha open to us now. And just allowing yourself to tune in, to see, sense, feel. So the method that I like to use when working with the Akashic records is the Akashic field and the Akashic records. And as we tune into the Akashic field, we're actually also tuning in at the level of body. And as we open into the Akashic field and into the Akashic records, it's a really beautiful, clear, subtly amplifying space to connect into your own wisdom, to tap into your own higher self, and to connect into your own essence. So everything, there's a kind of like a heightened level of clarity and a deeper access to your own wisdom, which is another reason why I love working in the Akashic field. So give me one moment to just tune in. Okay, so we'll go. So one of the reasons that I wanted to start with spouse or partner or whatever relationship is present for you, that's the most significant or maybe the most challenging, if you don't have a spouse or a partner. You can be present with whoever that is. The piece that's coming up for me today is an energetic curse. So this is what we're going to be looking at untangling. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what an energetic curse is. And actually they are common. They're common. Curses are common. And a curse is not like a witch cursed you at all. It's a name given to a type of energetic block that sits at soul level. And a curse ideally plays out when there's been intense anger energy. And you can find, curses, like a good example of this. And I think why this is coming through is because in terms of patriarchal consciousness and feminine power, like raw, like liberated sexual feminine power, is there's been like a lot of like anger energy, like misogyny, like directed at the feminine. So I'm just kind of highlighting that. It's interesting that it's coming through, and we're going to see, where that may be playing out. But curses, ideally, they are anger energy that is directed at us. So at some point in our experience, I'm not exactly sure which timeline we're traveling. Oh, right. I was going to connect us to our future self. Well, we'll come back to that because I'm already into this. So curses are anger energy that gets directed at us, but it's not necessarily our fault. In fact, it's not our fault at all. So in some past experience, anger or upset energy would have been directed at us. And we're present in that experience. And at the time, it can be very confusing. Like, why is this person so angry or upset at me? Like, what did I actually do? Like, I don't think I did anything, but the anger or the upset energy continues, and it continues to be directed at us. And over time, what can either happen is, through manipulation or through just a general sense of, if there's this much anger energy being directed at me and it's still being directed at me, maybe I did do something. Maybe there is something about me, or maybe I did create this. And then we end up taking responsibility for the anger energy being directed at us. It creates the block. All of a sudden, the energy of the curse, the anger energy, can take root as a block that we hold in our Akashic record. So that's so interesting that that piece is coming through. And we're talking about spouse or partner or whatever, being present with the major relationship that's coming up for you, because, patriarchal consciousness and even misogyny can exist within women as well. Like if you have, how do I say this without it sounding non loving? Misogyny and patriarchal consciousness can exist in women for sure. And we all have different layers to our own wounding. And, depending on where we're at in the scope of our own wounding, we can still have misogyny. It can show up in our female relationships as well. It's really interesting from what I've seen. So just being present with the relationship that's present for you, if it's not a spouse. And we're going to look at what is present with this curse energy. And as I'm tuning into it, the other piece that's also really interesting is where this sits in your own awareness. This is so like I had said, and what I was preferencing was about the mirror of our relationships and where that is also showing up internally. This is really interesting because I feel an intense anger energy being directed at feminine. Her fierceness, her power, her sexuality, the freedom that she desires, the natural, untamed, wild, feminine essence that she possesses, and what a threat it is. And that threat can be, again, I just got like shivers all over my body. I never know where these are going to go. So, and that threat can exist internally. It can be an actual, like a dance that we're doing with our own wounded masculine aspect, and our own wounded masculine aspect plays out as in our internal kind of like saboteur, but also like our internal aspect of our masculine that's wounded, that often controls, dominates, suppresses. Right. And so it's like our feminine will like want to move and flow and show up more boldly, or drop into more of her sexual power, or take up more space with her expression, her truth. And then all of a sudden it's like, we can't get that movement. We just feel it's like we're just kind of shackled in some way or another. There's an internal energetic dance going on between our masculine and our feminine. And so this is where we want to untangle that. And I'm following the energy of this, and I really love how it's coming through, and it feels really relevant. Please post and share in the Facebook group after, in terms of how this spoke to you, but let's just ride this and follow the energy of it, because it feels really important. And it feels important for me to have a sip of water. Hold on. Whew. Okay, so here it feels important now to realign to our evolutionary woman, to our future self, because she is powerful. So let me just tune into, I don't think we're going to open up like a timeline. We're not going to do anything like that. And I was kind of feeling into where I wanted to land with this future self version. And one of the kind of like archetypal energies that I've been really playing with and loving as a replacement to future self timeline activation is the quantum woman, the evolutionary woman, or the quantum woman. Evolutionary woman's a little bit different. quantum woman. We're going to use her as our avatar. So she is the woman that actually is like a bridge between like our ancient and like future self. She's like a blend of like of who we are as fully incarnated like super women. She is like the avatar of the full expression of like who the full expression of who we are. And we might see her embodiment in this lifetime, and we might see it in 2 or 3 lifetimes. But I want to work with her. That's who I'm feeling. That's who I am feeling called to connect with. And so, and this is beautiful because it just gives us some place to land in terms of the true expression of who we are. And we can start to let that awaken, like awaken in our being, awaken in our cells, like that cellular memory can start to really vibrate and activate as we cleanse and clear out all of this crud. So there's like a really beautiful like soul retrieval and kind of like cellular remembering happening. So let's go ahead and let's see. You can visualize yourself. Well, I'm kind of seeing us, it's weird, but I'm seeing us like floating in space. So seeing yourself like floating in space. And as you see yourself floating in space, you can go ahead and also see like a gold cord from the base of your spine. And it's dropping down through like all the way into Earth and down to the core of Mother Earth. Because I just want something to ground us. Okay, so as we're floating in space, there's a gold path that forms in front of you. And you can go ahead and you can step on to the gold path. And the gold path is going to lead up to like this really beautiful, big, ornate door. And you can walk up to this big, ornate door, and you're going to knock on this door like 3 times, like knock, knock, knock. And as you do the knocking, it's like your guides open the door. And there is your quantum woman. So, just notice how she's dressed. And this is guided by your higher self. We're in the Akashic field. Your Akashic records naturally open. And just notice who you notice. Who is your quantum woman? Like, who is that high holy version of like the woman that you were born to be? Notice how she comes through. This would be a really cool piece to just like, do some type of like a collage or some type of image to really get to know this version of you. And this quantum woman, as I like to call her, this kind of, and again, she contains that ancient memory of like who you were like many, many lifetimes ago, your natural wisdom, your sacred feminine power, your priestess lineages, the gifts of your own lineage. And the future aspect to me is more like your star seed lineage, kind of like it's like the gifts and the memory of like the experiences that you've had from different soul groups, from different star systems, right? And the medicine and the medicine that's present, and often it plays into kind of like your role in the collective healing of the planet. So just seeing her and loving up on her, just listening for any messages. And we're going to use her as an avatar throughout this 5-week journey to continue to realign and reawaken. Just giving you full permission to be in the next level of that of your expression, of your embodied expression. And we're just going to step by step kind of just use her as this beautiful avatar over the next 5 weeks. So connecting to her, loving up on her, listening to any wisdom. And when you feel ready, you're just going to go ahead and just like pull her into your body. Oh, that's so beautiful. Okay. And then once you've pulled her into your body, you can go ahead and you're going to see the gold cord that's still attached at the base of the spine is going to start to kind of like anchor you and bring you down to earth. And as you come down to earth, there is the inner child version of you standing in front of you, because she's an important piece too. She's like that more kind of vulnerable aspect of who you are in this current physical experience. And we want her to know that she's seen, that she's loved, and that she gets to come along for this journey, and that you're listening and that you're supporting her. Because oftentimes a lot of these relationship dynamics, right, she's been experiencing since she was little. So it can feel really vulnerable to push up against some of these pieces. But ultimately, we're making so much more space for both your quantum woman and your inner child. So just seeing her and like loving her, wrapping her maybe in that like pink light, really just letting her know that you're there. And then when that feels ready, you can just kind of gently just like either take her by the hand and just like hug her, or just pull her into your heart or into your body. We are going to come back now to this curse. This curse that is present. And I'm going to continue to move on from there. And while I'm in this space, and I always feel the Akashic Records, as soon as we're open and we're present in the space and you're choosing to be here, the Akashic Records naturally open for each one of us. But I'm going to take it a layer deeper and be a little bit more intentional with it. I'm going to ask the Akashic Guardians to please open the Akashic Record for any woman who's present on this call and any woman who will be listening to this call in the future. And that the Akashic Records be open now. And then you just simply have to say yes out loud or to yourself if that works for you. Okay, beautiful. So, okay, I'm going to talk about this curse because I haven't really located it. I don't really have the whole experience. I just kind of broke it down in terms of what it could look like and what it is. And it can often feel like walking on eggshells too. And this is important because as we go and as the divine feminine within awakens, that's kind of the initial part of like this like self connecting, and we're tending to her and we're listening to her. And it's kind of like, what's next? What do you want? What's the next vision? And that next evolution of her kind of awakens with. And then now she's like, she wants to lead. Now there's like space that wants to be made. And so sometimes that can be hard because it's like, if we have patterns as women, or maybe as like young women, where we went to make bold moves or make any moves, sometimes it could feel like maybe there was an experience where it felt like we were walking on eggshells. It didn't feel safe to do that. And so we end up holding back, or we end up making micro movements, or we don't make any movement at all. Okay. So this is why it's kind of cool when we're examining relationships too, because I'll often like work with women and, they'll say, well, my relationship with my spouse is great. And that's true. It's so true. Sometimes when we're doing relationship work, it's like not even necessarily like about like the relationship or the partner itself, but more about what's present in the experience of the woman and how her perception of that is playing out and creating limitation. But inevitably, I always find it will naturally reharmonize and create more space regardless. It just opens the way. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to go layer deeper now with where this energetic curse is present. Mm. Okay, well, I am getting some feedback here, and I'm going to say it because I don't know exactly how it'll piece together. Let's see here. Okay, so the way that this can play out too is because when the feminine awakens and it's like she's got needs, she's got wants, she's got new ways of being, she wants to show up, it can push up against like the masculine externally too, because that requires a shift in relationship dynamics. And for the most part, the masculine can get pretty cozy with the way that things have been set up in the home and in society. And so there can be this general sense of like, and it's not to say that like the partner or the spouse or the people that we're talking about here aren't loving beings, but it's more of like what has worked for them in the past, where their comfort level is, where they aren't willing to do their own work. But yeah, there's this like sense of like where it's like where the feminine will hold back um based on not wanting to make the masculine feel uncomfortable or like wanting to rock the boat, right? Because it's like human nature that when it's like we're like, hey, well, this worked for us, but this worked for me before, but it doesn't actually work for me now. And it's like human nature that what worked for the spouse or the partner up till that point, because it worked ideally for them and it's quite comfortable, it's like normal to have a little bit of pushback. And it's normal to have like a little like arguments. Like that's actually like it's kind of normal to have a fight, actually. Not always. Clearing work can really help create like a lot of grace and ease. But like a fight or an argument is like not the worst thing because it actually just means you're like pushing up against resistance to change. But as we move through the clearing work, what we're doing is we're creating space for you, for us to for us to claim what it is that we want and what it is that we know needs to happen to create more space for our divine feminine as essence in our relationships. And when we can recognize what's showing up, we can actually just hold ourselves through it. We can actually just like hold ourselves through the resistance and the little bit of upheaval and the little bit of pushback and a little bit of like relationship drama or fights or whatever it is that happens. And we can know that that's just part of like the where the where the patriarchal consciousness is actually starting to like untangle itself, right? The soul of the other person is moving through the next layer of resistance to create more space for the divine feminine. And this is so cool too, in terms of like spouses and relationships. I mean, I've seen this happen where it's like the feminine in the woman awakens and it's a next level piece and we're going deeper into ourselves because intimacy, right? Like and sovereignty, it all exists within. So the deeper that we go into our own intimacy and into our own sovereignty, the more it's going to be come accessible and the more it's going to want to be reflected in our partnerships, right? So as that space is made, and oftentimes it's like this, I'll see even in the masculine counterpart, it's like the awakening of more and the healing of more of his divine feminine aspect. And so connection and intimacy and heart-centeredness and like a whole other way of dancing together begins to happen, right? And that's where the beautiful reharmonizing begins to happen in the scope of our partners. And one of the reasons I wanted to drop in to this space first, because it often begins within us, and then space wants to be made in our partnership, and then we're going to start to travel the 5 touch points that we talked about. I mean, and this, everything that we're talking about is going to have a ripple effect through even working, with our partner or spouse today is still going to have a ripple effect. Oh my gosh, even in terms of like money, our business, our relationship to ourselves, just like in our own expression, just like we talked about. Okay, so now let's go ahead and for real, we're going to look up this, whatever this energetic curse is. And oh my gosh, I can see it and feel it. And it feels like some type of like a power struggle. It's like this push pull, this energetic dance it's not serving. Okay, so we're looking at a curse. I'm going to ask for the collective story that is most resonant for the whole of this program. And then I'm going to share it. And because we're doing group work, oh, yeah, well, okay. You're not actually working with your own Akashic. Well, you're working with your own Akashic record, but I'm making this a lot easier for you, because I'm looking it up and I'm doing it. But let's just see where it goes. This feels really deep and so good. And follow along with me. Feel this in your body. See what's coming up for you. Grab your own journal, right? Okay, so this curse. I'm going to ask for the story. Gosh, this is like, it's so interesting because I keep seeing like a woman with like a really strong voice, and she has a really strong voice, and she has like a really strong perception, and she's faced with, like, again, it's like that misogyny piece, and it's like I'm seeing like rows of like people from a community, and she's being pushed out, and kind of like, and the energy is one of like hatred, and there's like people with like pitchforks, and they're like very, very angry, and this woman is, so actually she's so beautiful, and she's very like in her natural like sexuality and in her natural power, and she's like really in her truth, and there's like this, the thing that's catching my attention too is like where there's like this, like it's like a line, like it's like very definitive line, and she keeps being like pushed into a corner. This is really interesting. So that's kind of like the first piece. And I think sometimes, in terms of like our feminine evolution and all of those things, and just being like the true expression of our divine feminine power, it can sometimes feel like that. I mean, I know just in terms of my own journey, sometimes it's like you step into that next layer expression and you're bumping up against this person, and you're bumping up against that person, and you're bumping up against this. And it's sometimes hard to not take it personally. And yet it's really just pushing up, and I'm coming back to this like misogyny piece, this like demonizing of female sexuality and power. It's really interesting that this is like a starting point for this journey. And okay, so that's the first piece. Let me see. I want to trail along and see what the rest of the story is. And so now this woman has like a baby in her hands and her arms, and she's so sad, and she's so scared, and she's so feeling the need to like protect this baby, to protect her offspring, which is like it's important. And I often, working with women to see this like as a part of the fear of like stepping out with their sacred work, is that they want to protect their children and they don't even really know why. But I'm seeing her with this baby, and she's just wanting to like shield the baby, like um from like the harshness of the world and the projections of her female power. And so she starts to like, I'm like literally seeing her like shrinking and like playing small and like wanting to hide and like blend in, because it just feels so much more safe than actually showing up in the fullness of her power in the fullness of her power. And it's interesting because I'm seeing this woman shift from shrinking and holding the baby to being like the powerful like tiger and protecting her cub. Oh, that's so interesting. And protecting her cub. Okay, I'm going to continue to go follow this story, and I'm going to unravel, and we're going to land all of this in the most beautiful way. But yeah, and all of a sudden now I'm seeing her, and she's, you know, she's allowed back into community, but only on the terms of the community. And she's, you know, it's interesting because I don't even see a masculine counterpart. Like, this is what's interesting. And she's kind of like alone, and she's with the child, and she's safe, and it's a relief. And she's like not in like, she's not in the eye of attention. And you know, and I think part two of like what happened was like around the birth of this child, and the birth of the child was like born out of like wedlock. And I know, you know, doing so many past life readings for women is that when a woman has a child and there isn't a male counterpart, generally life is pretty hard. Like, it generally sets her up for like to feel really segmented in society, because so much of the safety and survival came from having like a masculine partner. So this is so cool. I like that this is coming up. So I'm watching this woman, and now she's like in this little house. And it's so funny because the house she's like allowed to live in, if she plays by society's rules, she's allowed to live in there, but it's still kind of isolated. It's like not even really like fully integrated into community or society. So there's like this sense of like loneliness and isolation, and this sense of feeling abandoned by the masculine. Okay, so here we go. This is natural. This totally happens. It can happen at different stages of our evolution. And it's like, so even when we, you know, we've done the work and we do feel supported by the masculine, there can be like another like layer to it. So she's in this place, and she's frustrated, and she's shaking her head, and she's just feeling this sense of like, again, this like abandonment by the masculine. So we're dealing with kind of like two, like this, you know, two kind of like very common themes in terms of the masculine is one, like abandonment, and like the misogyny, like abandonment, and then the like hatred towards women. And of course it's like there's also a totally other experience of the masculine and of the sacred masculine, you know, the provider and the protector, which is where we start to connect into the king template and really come into that relationship with the high holy masculine consciousness. Okay, so I'm still not done, still piecing together the pieces. I'm going to have a sip of water though. Ooh, okay. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions in the records. Give me 1 second. So is this one curse, or is this 2 curses? Okay, interesting. So yeah, we're looking at 2 curses. Okay. Because the first curse is definitely that like the hatred towards the divine, towards full feminine power. I'm going to say it like that. So this is a sneaky one. But what it will have you doing is, so, you know, listening to this and feeling into where you're on the edge of stepping into or embodying more fully your full feminine power. And full feminine power, I guess, again, it's an evolutionary journey. But wherever you feel like you're on the edge of like taking up more space, right, with your feminine power, it's like, where are you doing the dance between claiming it and showing up in that space and then like playing by the rules? Because that feels more safe. It feels more safe to play by the rules than to show up in the next expression of your feminine power. And you're just noticing where you notice what you notice. Go ahead to your journals. I want to take a moment to just feel into this. Where it's Where does it feel edgy to show up in your feminine power because you're going to rock the boat or you're going to create upset? Taking a moment to be present with your body and where this may be showing up at the level of body. There's a lot of energy moving right now. This is so interesting. So this curse too, this is the one we're pulling from with the like the town and then the woman kind of feeling we and feeling backed into a corner. Um, that example that story that I pulled up right at the beginning, because also what's showing up here is like, where do you sometimes feel backed into a corner? And that can feel like I don't work for this person, or I've upset this person with like how I'm showing up. I don't work for this person and I've upset that person. And it can play out with a partner or a spouse. And I want to give one other, if we bring this back to spouse or partner, this can show up in terms of our feminine leadership, right? Where it's like the divine feminine within rises up. We're anchoring into more of our embodied feminine power. We're on the edge of creating more room for that expression, and their tug of war happens, right? It's like our partner doesn't trust the power of the feminine to lead. And it can create upset. There can be distrust. There can be just like anger, even like that the spouse or the partner has to like deal with this. And a lot of it isn't like totally conscious. Okay. So what we're opening up here is, and the word that's coming through is freedom. It's freedom to lead, to flow, to express. Right? We're what we're clearing out with this curse is where we've bought into the rules, where we've bought into um where we bought into allowing others upset to dictate our own flow or expression. And if we bring, and this can be, again, it can come back to spouse for sure. I do get that. Like, that's where I'm feeling a little bit of that push pull. And then also, if we bring that internally, where internally there is that sense of like, shh, like, don't get too loud, don't draw too much attention, blend in, play safe, stay small. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ask that this curse be cleared and destroyed right to the point of creation, through all timelines, through all dimensions, and right to the point of creation for each woman, right? Depending on her unique timeline, her unique situation, and again, cleared and destroyed right to the point of creation. And I'm going to ask that all of that be gathered up and then it be transmuted to divine love and light and then released fully back to source. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is. Okay, so as we clear that out, bring your focus to a gold door about 50 feet above the head. And we're going to open that gold door and down cascades like a beautiful golden energy, which really represents the high holy masculine, the sacred masculine, the divine masculine. And this divine masculine is going to ground itself, this presence, this consciousness is going to ground itself into your experience. And it carries kind of like the highest, like the father codes. Okay, so it's like the divine feminine, or sorry, the divine masculine, like love codes, like like just the like unconditional, like loving codes. And at the same time, being in the essence and the energy of this quantum woman and allowing yourself to feel like like that radiant energy of like love, protection, safety, and support, right? In who you are as a divine feminine woman. Like that your naturalness, your erotic innocence, your sensuality, your sexuality, the full spectrum of your feminine power, right? That it is loved, that it is celebrated, that you are protected, that you're provided for. And just kind of like really allowing yourself to receive the love, mostly in the protection and the provider, just like the gold energy wrapping itself around you. That no matter who you are, where you're being called to go, or how you know that you are meant to show up, that you're always being loved, supported, cherished, and provided for, that it is safe to be you. And let's just see that gold energy start to permeate itself with just even entering in through the top of your head, but all around you, and just kind of doing like a sweep through the whole family matrix. That gold energy, just doing a sweep through the whole family matrix, doing a sweep through the family of origin. And it's just gathering up any remnants of any energy that's connected to what we cleared out today. And we're just going to see it move all up to the door to be transmuted. And so it is. And then quickly, I'm going to look at this curse. We're almost done. And if you have to hop off, you can come back, but just give me a couple more minutes. I want to go back and I want to look at the woman in the house who was feeling isolated and abandoned by the masculine. You know, and part of the reason that she was abandoned by the masculine was because the baby was born out of wedlock. And the blame was put on the feminine, and the man that impregnated this woman, you know, in our collective memory or experience of this, it was put on the woman. Like she did this. Like she was like Satan was like, you know, dancing in her and like told him to do bad things. Like it got put on her. And so he didn't take responsibility. And he didn't move forward with the like marriage or to take care of the mother and the child because of his own his own shame. So we're looking at a curse. And it is a curse. And is it a curse from the father? Yeah, it is. Okay. So it would have been a curse from the relationship, like where the root of this abandonment was. And um yeah, there's something about like responsibility, and let's see where the anger was directed. I mean, this is the thing, because the masculine, there was definitely room for responsibility, but instead of taking responsibility, there was anger at the situation, anger and upset that it ever happened. And that is what got directed at the woman, right? So noticing where there's been blame or upset or anger over a situation that wasn't your fault, wasn't your fault, and where you ended up taking responsibility for this. This is so cool, because there was nothing that happened in that experience that was actually like your fault or the woman's fault in that experience, right? It was like societal projections. And it was where there was a lack of taking personal responsibility from the masculine for his actions. And also noticing where in the scope of your experience, this may or may not apply, but like where the masculine may not always take personal responsibility for his actions and then ends up like blaming. Ends up blaming the feminine, and then where there can be like a pulling away of the spouse and where there can be a sense of abandonment. So this curse, so that's like where the female took responsibility. It was like she just felt like almost because she was abandoned, it must have been her fault. It must have been her fault. And so when the feminine feels abandoned by the masculine, she ends up feeling like it's her fault. So we want to clear this, and I'm going to ask that this curse be cleared and destroyed right to the point of creation, through all records, through all timelines, through all dimensions, and that it be transmuted to divine love and light and then released fully back to source. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is. Okay, so this is about knowing that it's safe for you to move forward, for us to move forward in whatever way, that it's safe for you to move forward, and that you won't be abandoned by the high holy masculine, that you won't be really abandoned by the masculine, like not a true sacred masculine that's ready to upgrade with you. And even in terms of like your own internal masculine, that this can be a beautiful partnership, a dance where you get to be in the power of your feminine. You get to lead from the power of your feminine. You get to feel free in the power of your feminine, right? And that true liberated expression. And the masculine will be there to support, love, cherish, and protect. And so it is. And this can show up in our external experience as like almost like if I really move forward and I really step into the next evolution of who I know I'm being called to be, there can be an undercurrent of feeling like we might be abandoned. Even though it's not true. I've seen this happen. Like there's like no proof, but like a woman will show up and she's like, I don't know, I just feel like I might like, I don't know, lose my husband or like lose my family. And there's really no evidence for that, but it runs deep. And this can play out with money too. If we move forward and we trust the way we're really guided to move forward in our feminine expression, is like money really going to be there for me? Yes. Yes, because supply is an extension of the divine masculine energy. It's an extension of the energetic surplus that exists on the planet that wants to be there for us as we rise in our divine feminine sovereignty. Woo! All right. So We're okay, perfect. So this has gone really long now, 90 minutes, so not too bad. But what is the most important insight or awareness that you have had today? You want to go to your journal. I'm going to give you a minute to just hash that out. If you're listening to the recording, you can press pause if you need a bit more time or come back. The most important insight or awareness, something that is really sticking out to you. And you know what? I'm already getting like what the embodied action step is. There seems to be an invitation to play in the realm of a connection to your feminine power. And like I'm seeing movement, I'm seeing dance, and I'm also seeing like using sacred adornment to tap into your your sexiness. That seems to be a piece because sacred adornment's really beautiful in terms of just like creating space for the energy and the essence of her. And then also it's like the physical expression of her. So you can definitely take that and play with that a little bit and use that to activate that energy in your experience. It creates flow, creates movement. It's just kind of creating space to let her lead. And if there's any kind of way you want to honor your most important insight, make a note of what that could look like. Maybe it's having a conversation. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just like next time I feel the impulse to do this, to show up more fully, I'm just going to like follow it. All right, beautiful. I know that felt a little bit rushed, and the following calls won't because we won't have as much to cover in the beginning. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to thank the guides, guardians, masters, angels, teachers, ancestors who have been a part of this experience today. The ancestors are surrounding us with so much love this whole journey, this whole journey. And knowing that the clarity, healing, intentions, activations, it's all going to unfold into completion for your highest good. And the door between the worlds is now closed. And so it is. Drink lots of water today and tomorrow. If you need to just like be still and integrate this for a minute or two after our call, do that. Share in the Facebook group. I would love to hear what came through for you. And I'll talk to you all very soon. You're welcome, Danielle. Talk to you soon. Bye.